Welcome to the Run for God Run Club, where you will find God in a runner's space.
Welcome to the Run for God Run Club. This is your one stop each week to be motivated and inspired to get off the couch and onto the running trail, where you can in turn inspire others to do the same. Let's learn, laugh, and leap into running together, giving God the glory for what we're able to do in His name. Amen. I am your running host, Dean Thompson. Since we're getting so close to Christmas, and I can't buy all of you presents, I present to you Run for God founder Mitchell Hollis.
You're getting a bit on the corny side with these. Hey, let me ask you a question. 10 years ago, did you ever see yourself as being a person that would do a podcast?
No, I really didn't. Wouldn't have, ever.
It's crazy. I thought about, today we're starting to gear up for the Couch to Marathon Challenge, and we've done 2 videos for the 5K challenge, and now we're sitting here doing a podcast. And it kind of hit me on the way up here. I would have never in a million years. That's just how God works, ain't it?
It is. He gets us outside of comfort zones and places where we think we belong, and puts us into places where we don't think we belong, and uses
But
us
He
that
can
way.
work.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Amazing. Hey, turning points. Have you ever had one of those things that happened and just kind of refocused you? We'll talk about somebody who went through just that today. How do you react to the world around you? How do you react when your running doesn't go as planned? We'll talk about how the way we react to things can make all the difference, right? So, trivia question. We had a trivia question last time. People are getting into these trivia questions. I now have people answering trivia questions and saying, I just love participating in trivia. I don't care if I win or not, which is cool. It's very
Did
cool.
I hear you telling somebody that somebody turned down the prize?
They did.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. They had already won, and so they decided
They
they
just felt bad.
wanted somebody else to win.
Wow, what a good Samaritan.
Yes, absolutely. So there was a guy from Finland who participated in 3 Olympic Games almost 100 years ago. What was his name? What was his nickname? And how many Olympic medals did he win? Did you know this one?
I had no clue.
I figured. Most people don't know who this guy is, and most people have never heard this name before.
I'm looking at his name, and I've never heard of him.
Yeah. Paavo Nurmi, the guy's name is, and he was also known as the Flying Finn. He set 22 world records at all distances from 1,500 meters to 20K. He competed in 12 events in 3 Olympic Games. So he went to 3 Olympics and competed in 12 events. How many distance runners do you know that competed in 4 events average per Olympics? That typically doesn't happen. He won 9 gold medals out of 12 events that he participated in, and got on the podium in all 12.
Wow.
At one point, this guy was undefeated in 121 consecutive races. Now, that's one thing if you're a sprinter but with distance runners, we all know that people have bad days, and there's just times where 121 consecutive races. And he was never beaten over his entire career in cross country or in the 10K on the track. Isn't that crazy?
It is. Yeah, the fact that I've never heard of him, that's the strange part. Usually somebody legendary like that would kind of be a household name in a runner's household, but I've never heard of him.
I'm going to say this, and I don't want you to take this the wrong way. In America, we tend to be American-focused, I think, and that's not putting down America.
No, but not distance running. I mean, you got Bekele and Kipchoge. I mean, I know all these.
But those are today.
Those are today. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you didn't know who the old Bekele was.
Right. Yeah.
I
You obviously don't know who he is either.
I want to say Abdi because we got Abdi Rahman. The names all,
right.
Yeah, they all run together. Anyway, so he started, this guy, Paavo Nurmi, started out in the 1920 Olympics. It was his first race. In his first race, he finished only second. So out of those 12, he then went on to win 10 out of the next 11, or 9 out of the next 11. And then he won the 10,000 and cross country in that Olympics. So he competed in 3 events and he won 2 of them. And he is the only guy in the history of Earth to ever have world records for the mile, the 5K, and the 10K. That's a pretty broad range. You don't find somebody who's great at the mile and the 10K.
Because right now, Bekele has the 5K and 10K, right?
No, they were both just beaten by
Cheptegei. Yeah, okay, that's who I was thinking of. Yeah, Cheptegei has the 5K and 10K, so he just needs to go for the mile.
Yeah.
But that's a different animal now. I mean,
you
don't.
Yeah.
But I guess back then it was, you did one, you did them all.
Well, not necessarily. That's what made him unique, was that he was different. He did go in a much broader range than most people did. He at one time in the Olympics set world records at the 1500 and the 5000 with less than an hour between the two events.
1500 is a good warm up.
Can you imagine today somebody even attempting that? Nobody would attempt that today. Today they would go, that's just too hard. There's no way we can do that.
Right.
In 1924 Olympics, he won 5 gold medals in one Olympics. And he was mad at the committee there in Finland because they didn't want him to run the 10K. They took him out of the 10K, so he wanted to win a 6th. Because he never lost in the 10K, so he probably would have won a 6th. And this was in Paris, and it was 113 degrees during the cross-country race. Less than half the field finished the race. It was so bad. And, of course, it was no big deal for him. He won. No big deal. And this is the sad part of Paavo Nurmi, is he wanted to finish his career in 1932. He realized that as he got older, it was tougher to run the shorter distances, so he moved up to the marathon. And he ran one marathon in his life, and he set a world record in that one. Now, this was a 25-mile marathon, so it was a little bit different. But if you extended that out to 26.2, it would have been a world record for 26.2 as well. So his one marathon was the trials. He won it, probably would have won the Olympics in 1932. But what happened was, apparently there was a really, really super competitiveness between Sweden and Finland. And Sweden did something or brought something up that made them question his eligibility. You know, back then you couldn't be a professional. Mm-hmm. And there was some dispute on whether he got paid to go do a race somewhere else. And so they declared him ineligible, and so he could not run in the 1932 Olympics. And that was kind of a sad thing. He kind of ended his career in the 1928 Olympics, I guess. He ran a couple more races after that in 1933, but in 1934 he decided he was going to retire. It was sad. What was interesting about this 25-mile world record that he had was he had nothing to drink during the race. You know, today we say that, and it's like that you can't do that.
People look at you like you got 3 heads.
Yeah.
Eventually, what was his time?
I don't remember.
Didn't say his time.
I want to say it would have been under 2:30.
Okay.
So that gives you an idea kind of on where he was in today's numbers.
Right.
Would have been a record back then. He eventually became a coach. And he became one of the richest men in Finland, because it turns out that this same drive that he had to be such a great athlete also served him well in the business community, and became a really, really successful businessman as well. His training methods, the things that he did back then, were something that were a novelty. So one of the things, for example, that he did back then was he believed that even pacing was important. Up to that point, people didn't realize that even pacing was important. He was one of the first ones to understand that. Mm-hmm. And so that obviously really plays big in today's training. But he also did some crazy stuff. So while he was in the Army, he would hold on to a train and run alongside the train as the train was going to stretch his legs out and try to get longer strides. He had these ironclad boots, and he would wear those and go for runs in these ironclad boots. Paavo did some crazy stuff. He was real big on, we talk about strength training today and how important strength training is. Mm-hmm. Well, Paavo was one of those guys who did a lot of that stuff on the side. He did his running, but he also did a lot of strength training on the side, and probably led to him being somewhat less injury prone than most, although one of the things that finally put him on the sidelines was an Achilles injury. So apparently he was a pig-headed man. Apparently one of the things they talked about with him was that he was very opinionated, and he didn't mind letting his opinion be known. And there was a guy from Sweden. As I said, there was a big rivalry between Finland and Sweden. And apparently this guy had tried to stop him. Paavo was trying to break the 3,000-meter world record. And this guy kept running in front of him and slowing down and making him go around him and just giving him a hard time while he was trying to break this world record. And so Paavo decided he wasn't running against anybody from Sweden ever again. And so that's the kind of pig-headed guy that Paavo Nurmi was.
It sounds like he was just a hardcore guy. Everything he did he was all in.
Yep, 100 miles an hour in that direction in every case.
A lot to be said there.
Absolutely. So there's Paavo Nurmi. What an interesting guy. Go check him out and look him up, because there's some other things, too, about Paavo. He's got a big Wikipedia page because he did a lot of stuff. The business, there's stories about him in the business community, stories about him in the Army that kind of add to the Paavo Nurmi, the man. So go check out Paavo Nurmi.
Social media?
Nope.
Grocery store tabloids?
Nope.
The newspaper?
Not usually.
The national news?
Are you serious?
Is there any media source these days that only shares a positive message? A lot of the media we take in each day can be pretty negative. Why not make the decision right now that your music will only be positive? Sign up for an account at jradio.com today and download the app in your app store with music for every moment and entirely positive Christian message. It'll be nice to hear things going right for a change.
All right, so we're back, and if you haven't noticed yet, there is a Run for God channel on J Radio. If you're part of J Radio, and I know that several of you are, there is a Run for God channel now, thanks to Mitchell finally getting his playlist in.
Have you listened to my playlist?
I have not. I have to be honest.
It's
I need to.
pretty awesome.
I will.
I have old Gold City. I have the Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir. I have some new stuff, and I've got some really old stuff. And my wife was kind of rolling her eyes the other day when we were listening to it going down the road, because she's like, this is not a running playlist. But I beg to differ.
Yeah.
It is for me. It's all my favorite music, and it's probably unlike any playlist you're going to hear on all of J Radio.
Because you got to be unique.
I think Jared had to go back into the archives on some of my songs to find them.
That's what I was going to say. Probably took him time to find some of those.
Yeah. Mine go way back. So this past Friday night, Dean is not going to mention this, so I'm going to mention it. This past Friday night, Dean has had this goal of breaking some records in the state of Georgia. He is the old guy. He's 55 years old now. And so this past Friday night, he decided that he wanted to break the Georgia state record for the 5K for the 55 to 59 year olds. And the record was 17:34. And so you got to have a certified race. So a local race in our community, the Silver Bell Sprint, they got this course certified really just for Dean and for this race. Kudos to them. And so Dean took off on this race. He was kind of questioning. My son was threatening to call him a pansy if he didn't break it. And
that was motivation.
So they come through, and his time was 16:36. So basically a minute you broke the state record by, which is incredible. So tell me about let's talk about this race for just a little bit. You've been thinking about it for a while. Walk me through it.
Yeah, I still can't believe I ran that fast, just frankly. I remember taking off, and I felt good, and I remember just pulling right out to the front immediately. And Lane was gonna hold back because it was a really odd course, and the way that it was set up was very early. You made this 180-degree turn, and so he wanted to make sure that I didn't get tripped up in that turn.
So Lane is my son,
That's
who
right.
you coached since he was little, and
Right. And
Lane's job was to help get you to the
His job was to pace me.
Yeah.
Was to try to keep me on pace, keep me motivated, keep me. He also, during the times when we were running into the wind, because it was windy that day, his job was to kind of run in front of me, and I'd run behind him, and he'd break the wind a little bit and help me out just a little. And but he was just an encouragement the whole time. And so anyway, he let me run. I knew he was going to let me run out in front, but the guy who actually eventually won the race also kind of held back a little bit too and let me get out there. So I was able to get to that turnaround by myself basically in front, and which helped a lot. But I felt good, and I was like, am I running that fast and I'm out in front? And I thought, surely not. But we kept going, and we got to that first mile. Well, we got probably a half a mile in, and Lane turns to me. He goes, "We're way under pace," and that's all he said. And I was like, okay. And he was just what he was doing was he was asking for feedback for me to know, do we need to slow down or do we need to keep going? And you could feel him kind of slow down. And I pulled up on his shoulder, and I was like, I didn't say it, but he felt me go, I'm not ready to slow down. And so he picked it back up again. And we went through that first mile more than 15 seconds faster than what was planned.
So what was your first mile?
Our first mile was 5:08. And the official time was probably 5:11, 5:12, or the watch went off before we passed the mile mark, so probably about 5:12. Our goal was 5:25.
Wow.
And so we were well under pace at that point, and I still felt good. And we were running uphill at that point, and I felt good. And so then we turned and we ran into the wind, and I kind of relaxed a little bit there for about a half a mile. And Lane said, yeah, he went back and he looked at and he realized he had his watch set to go off every half mile. And so he said that was our slowest half mile, was just after that first mile. We ran like a 2:45, like 5:30 pace for that mile. And then he said, and all of a sudden he felt me started pushing on him again. And he thought, well, I'm just going to pick it back up again. And so we picked it back up. And sure enough, we came to the second mile, I think 5:23 according to my watch. Again, faster than what we thought we would be. And then we got in that last mile, and I thought, well, if I feel good, I'm just going to really press, because the guy that was leading was a young guy. He was two years out of high school, and no way I can beat him, but I was still right there. And so I thought, well, if I'm close at 2 miles, I'm going after him. So at 2 miles, I'm chasing after this young guy as hard as I can go. And we got on that straightaway, and I just thought, as soon as I get to the top of this hill and I make that right-hand turn, I am going to hammer as hard as I can go for this last half mile, and I'm going to try to catch him. And so I did. And I got to within probably about 3 seconds of him.
Yeah, when I saw right before y'all were making that right-hand turn to come up Thornton, y'all were right on him.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was...
And it was interesting because I was telling Lane, I said, go win. Because I was telling him, we were right there. I knew Lane still had the legs in him to go ahead and win the race.
Yeah.
And I thought, you've done your job with me. Just go take care of business and go win this thing. And he thought I said something about the wind.
Block the wind.
Yeah. So he never did pull ahead. He just kind of hung with me. And
I don't think he would have had it any other way, though.
Well,
he was more excited about doing that than I've seen him for his own races before. He was, and I love the smack talking before the race.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I mean, all the way down there, we hadn't seen you yet, and he's like, we got to get there early. I got to give Dean his pep talk, because he's had so many pep talks from you through the years that it was time to turn the favor.
Yeah, and I remember that. You said Lane's got something he needs to tell you, and all of a sudden the back window comes down in the car, because I'm sitting in my truck, he's sitting in the back seat. The window comes down. He says, "Okay, all right, I thought about this now," and he goes into why I shouldn't have any problem running that fast. But then he follows it with, "Here's the way I look at it: is if you can't run that fast, you're just a pansy." And I thought, well, we can't have that. That's
been 5 years in the earning right there.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well,
congratulations.
Well, thank you.
And so this weekend, I'm going to go ahead and say it for you. You're going to try to break the 8K record as well. So how many records are you going to try to break? Are you going to go all the way up to the marathon?
Well, yes, I'm going to try to break the marathon in January. So that was actually the first plan was to do that one. But then I looked and I saw the 5K and I realized we had a local 5K, and so I just started thinking about these other ones. But my goal was to break the marathon record. So That's coming up in January the 16th.
So stay tuned.
Yeah. Hey, so don't forget that you can send questions to me at dean@runforgod.com. If you don't know about us, again, go to runforgod.com to learn more. Go to Run for God Run Club if you want to know more about Run Club. We would love to have you a part of Run Club if you're not already a part of Run Club. And don't forget that we would love to hear your story. We're about to share somebody's story here, and everybody's story is unique, and we'd love to hear yours. And so send your story to us through those websites at runforgod.com or runforgodrunclub.com. So, yeah. And, we've got a big thing going on here, right?
It's still blowing my mind, Dean. The Couch to Marathon starting January the 17th. We have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people already signed up for this. I just have this idea in my head that come January 2022, we're going to have 1,000 people going to Disney.
That'd be so exciting.
So if you're just hearing about this for the first time, basically January 17th, we're starting a brand new challenge. It's our most ambitious challenge ever. And it's the Couch to Marathon in 1 year. Now, you may be thinking, that's a little bit of an aggressive goal. We've had some comments about this, but it's really not. If you always take a goal and you break it down, and we're going to do 12 weeks. The first 12 weeks is the Couch to 5K challenge. Right. So if you've never run, I think everybody who has been through it would agree, anybody can do the Couch to 5K. You're going to take a week off, and then we're going to start the 5K to 10K program for the next 12 weeks. Everybody pretty much agrees that that's attainable. And then we're going to take a week off. We take a week off between every break. And then we're going to do the 10K to half marathon. So you're going to start in July, and in October you're going to run a half marathon. 12 weeks. And then from a half marathon to a marathon starting in October, we're going to take a week off. Mid-October we're going to go to January doing the marathon challenge. And then January 2022, we're going to all meet down at Disney World. If you can't come to Disney World, you can run a marathon anywhere. You don't have to come and run the Disney Marathon. But a lot of us are going to meet down there, and we're going to graduate together, and we're going to celebrate and have fun and get to know each other and just have a big old time. And, we really didn't know what to expect when we rolled this out there. We thought, we didn't know what to expect. We had no goal. We had no nothing. But it has been incredible, the response to it. The biggest response we've ever had for anything. Is for this program. And we've got people who have never run before. We have people who are coming back to running. And then we have seasoned veterans, just like you. Yeah. So we've got people from all three groups, never run, all the way to seasoned veterans, who are doing this. And there's a place in this program for all of those people. So go to runforgod.com/marathon. Pretty simple. runforgod.com/marathon. And check it out and join us this January. It's free for Run Club members. And we talk about this all the time. Run Club is cheap. It's 27 cents per day to join Run Club. 27 cents per day to fulfill that bucket list, or that item in that bucket that you've had in your bucket list for years, and that's to run a marathon. You can do it with hundreds and hundreds of your best friends.
We promise that 27 cents a day is well spent. Even if you don't do the Couch to Marathon program, it is well worth it if you like to be motivated. And you know what? If you just like to be part of a group and have a little bit of fun, and we just have a good time with this. So
yeah,
be a part. Our story this week comes from Daniel Cam from Brunswick, Ohio, and the title of this devotion is The Turning Point. I am a general dentist in Ohio. I have been practicing for 41 years, mainly doing oral surgeries, bone grafting, and dental implants. Since I do medical histories every day, I am keenly aware of the general health status of my population of patients. About 5 years ago, I began to realize that Americans were getting sicker and sicker. Cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, multiple sclerosis, kidney failure, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, etc. They were all running rampant. Obesity, not just being overweight, was getting much more common. It was not unusual for my patients to be on 7 to 10 different medications per day. Bypass surgeries and stent placements were becoming the norm. What was going on? Why was our healthcare system failing us? I prayed that God would give me a clue. He did. I stumbled upon a movie called Forks Over Knives. Aha! It's in the food. It led me down the path of daily studying about nutrition and health and how diseases work. I learned from those who have become my heroes, Doctors Colin Campbell, Caldwell Estelin, Dr. John McDougall, Dean Ornish, Neil Bernard, Pam Popper, Michael Greger. They were all telling the same story. We don't have to be a sick culture. I began a whole food, plant-based diet. It felt so right, and the daily research that I studied confirmed that I was on the right track. But I was lacking a key component to my health: exercise. I like to run, but I only did it sporadically. I could not seem to motivate myself. Then along came Run for God at my church, Hope Church in Brunswick. Now I had a goal, a team, and motivation. Now I was running not just for myself, but also for God. I was running last night in week 9 of the program and realized that I was filled with the Holy Spirit. Here I was, almost 67 years old, running with absolutely nothing hurting and feeling powerful. I am on no medication, only slightly overweight, have excellent blood pressure, and a resting heart rate that is getting better every week. God gave me the Run for God program, the missing piece for me. Now my lifestyle is His. He created our bodies, His temples, and the most amazing machines known to man, and He is so glad that I am finally truly taking care of mine. I'm not only running for Him, I am running to Him.
Wow, that's a great story, Dean.
Plant-based diet. That sounds familiar, right?
It does.
Man.
You're still on that, right?
Yeah, I am, and I have to say, this whole record thing and where I am I didn't say this before, but that particular race I have run no less than a dozen times over the years. That was one within a few seconds of my fastest I've ever run there.
Really?
And I'm 55. Yeah. So, and I credit part of that to the plant-based diet. So, I think that I feel what he feels. And it's one of the biggest things I found this year. The two big things that I think helped a lot in that race was the plant-based diet and the shoes. The two big things. Scripture passage number 1, 1 Corinthians 6:19 and 20. Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies. Of course, the Bible here is talking about sexual sin specifically in this particular verse. But, we can easily extend that to anything that has to do with our bodies. And we do. Including how to fuel it, how to tune it up, and to do those things. He mentioned medications. The amount of medications we're on in this country are astounding.
Yeah, I mean, I have some relatives that I've been with them in the mornings before, and I mean it's boxes of medications, and these aren't older people. These are people my age, and it's just. I've never, luckily, I guess I've been blessed, and I've never had to be on really any medications, but it's, I don't know what's going on. I think there's more than just what he talked about in his story. I think there's an epidemic of drug companies pushing medications. But yeah, I think with this verse, 1 Corinthians 6, we have to look at our bodies. I mean, it's very clear what it says. It's we're the temples of the Holy Spirit, but these aren't our bodies. These are simply a vessel, and we have to look at it as if they're not ours. How would you treat my truck if you came and borrowed it? I hope you would take care of it and make sure it's running right, and all those things. Well, that's how we're supposed to look at our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
But so many times we just don't.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and we are just borrowing them, just like that truck.
Sure.
Yeah. We need to be healthy in order. God has a plan for all of us. He tells us that in Jeremiah, how He's got a plan for all of us, and that plan includes physical things.
Mm-hmm.
And the healthier we are, the better we can execute those things that He has for us.
Right.
So it just makes sense. And I don't think we like this verse, because we know that it does tell us we should eat better, we should exercise.
Very convicting.
It's a very convicting verse. I think we really especially hate this one at Thanksgiving.
And Christmas.
And Christmas.
And when somebody has a birthday and they have cookie cake.
Absolutely. I always like to bring up when I was teaching Sunday school class. We haven't had our Sunday school in a while, but when I was teaching my Sunday school class, there would always be this subject that came up, and it would be some grave sin, some big sin that's bigger than everything else, or at least in the eyes of the people that were in the class. And I always like to bring up, God says sin is sin, and gluttony is sin.
And then you can hear a pin drop.
Nobody liked to hear that one. But gluttony is not treating our bodies well, particularly when it comes to food.
Exactly.
So, scripture passage number 2, 2 Corinthians 4:15 through 18. Therefore we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. There's a ton in that verse. I mean, there is a lot to unpack in there.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of takes me back to the conversation we had a few weeks ago about treasure in heaven.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be looking at this life not by the things we see, just like it says here. And it says, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. That's so long as we're focused on Jesus. That may not be the case for everybody. Paul was speaking to believers here, but there's a huge segment of our population that are not being renewed day by day, and it's up to us to live by example, to shine light without necessarily saying any words. The biggest impact we can have on people is the things we do, not necessarily the things we say. And if we're living out a life sold out to Jesus Christ, we're taking care of our bodies, we're doing everything that His Word says we need to do, people are going to notice that. And it's not something we have to say. And if we're not dedicating our bodies to Christ, just like we dedicate other areas of our life to Christ, and people will notice that. It's kind of a tricky tightrope there, but we need to take care of our bodies just like they're not ours, because they're not ours.
Yeah.
And I can get in trouble and say things I probably shouldn't say here, but take care of yourself.
Yeah, one of the things too that it says, because you mentioned where it says we're being renewed day by day, but it says outwardly we're wasting away.
Exactly.
The world looks at us and thinks that that's what we're doing. The world looks at us and thinks, well, you're wasting your time with all of this God stuff,
right? And
with why are you doing all of that? Why, on Sunday mornings I sleep late. I get extra rest on Sunday mornings because I don't go to church. And they look at us as if we're wasting away, when in reality we are being renewed day by day. What a great picture that is. But what a sad picture it is for those people who don't realize what's really happening there. Right?
But that's also the urgency we have, in that we have a job here to do. We need a healthy body to do that job.
Mm-hmm.
But our job is to go reach those people who are not being renewed day by day, and to point them to the one who can make that happen.
Yeah. So the idea is to look away from the world and toward God. These momentary troubles that it talks about here they're not even speed bumps in the grand scheme of things.
Mm-mm.
But yet so many people in the world, the people you're talking about that we do need to reach, they think those are giant mountains.
Yeah.
And they're nothing but speed bumps. Scripture passage number 3, 2 Timothy 4, 7 and 8. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Now there is in store for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day. And not only to me, but also to all those who have longed for his appearing. That is such a powerful, powerful, powerful passage. You know, Paul is saying 3 things here. He's saying he has confidence that he worked hard for God while he was on this earth. Number 2, he had completed his mission, that God gave him a job to do, and he had done that job. And number 3, he tells us that he specifically stuck to the truth, exactly what God had in store for him to do. And we're so quick today to dismiss truth. It's really, really scary. Or at least, I say dismiss truth because a lot of times we talk about truth as it relates to outside of the church. But even inside the church, we're compromising. We're not dismissing truth, we're compromising truth. And I think that we've got to be very careful about that.
Yeah, you know, this is the second time we've talked about this verse today. And probably if I have one wish, it's to be able to say this at the end of my life. You know, I don't know what the end of my life is going to look like, but I guess if I had a wish, it would be, you know, Paul knew that his days were very limited at that point. And to be able to say, I fought the good fight, I finished the race, I've kept the faith, now I know what's coming. And to have that confidence, that peace, you got to imagine what Paul was facing when he said this. But to have that kind of peace in the face of that kind of persecution, you can't deny a God at that point.
Yeah.
You just can't. For somebody to have that kind of peace and resolve under those circumstances, it only points to one thing, because most people dealing with the things he was dealing with and about to face, they would have been in agony. They would have been blaming God and crying out, why? But not Paul.
Yeah, I was just listening to a podcast, and we listen to some of these investigative podcasts occasionally, my wife and I, when we travel. And it was talking about how this guy was on death row, and he watched the other death row inmates around him, and how most of those guys, and we don't think about this, most of those guys are heavily medicated because they're freaking out, because they're so scared. And who can blame them, right?
Right.
But that's where Paul was when he wrote this. He was in that last cell. He was the next
modern day death row. Yeah.
This was his last letter he ever wrote right here.
And he knew it.
And he knew it.
Yeah.
And he's excited
Yeah.
about where he's headed. Golly,
Yeah, and it's amazing. You know, I need to tell, at some point I am going to tell my dad's whole story, but that, you know, that's where my dad was. You know, before my dad was saved, he was going into a surgery where he thought he might not come out. It was very likely he might not come out. He was terrified. I mean, I saw the look on his face, and that's the moment he got saved. I asked the doctors to step out, and because I saw it. I firsthand saw what the terror of a lost person who thinks they're about to die looks like. Fast forward 10 years to another surgery that he was about to go into. Almost the same exact circumstance with one big exception. I asked him, I said, Dad, are you ready for this surgery? He said, absolutely. He said, I know where I'm headed. You can't, that gives me cold chills just talking about it. You cannot explain that. You cannot explain that outside of Jesus Christ. Like I said, I saw it firsthand. It was the tale of two dads to me.
Yeah.
Same person, two different dads. And yeah, I mean, that is my hope, is that will be. And I think that if that were the case right now, I hope I would be like Paul.
Yeah.
And that, okay, God's done with me here, but man, there's something better coming.
Yeah. Yeah. That's our hope and prayer, that everybody is in that spot. First question. There were 2 trees in the Garden of Eden. We chose the wrong tree, and it has made all the difference. How does our gaining the tree of knowledge of good and evil affect how we take care of our bodies? This is such a great question. Never heard anything put quite this way. Because the evil one is always telling us constantly that these temporary satisfactions are more important than anything else. And that, what is it we hear all the time these days? And people say it in a way that is it's innocent in the thought and why they're saying it, but it's so destructive overall, is that we deserve to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible tells us we do not deserve to be happy. We deserve quite the opposite.
Pick up your cross daily is not a picture of happiness.
Yeah.
Now, there's joy and there's peace, but not necessarily happiness. But you're right. I mean, the world says, do it now, you deserve it. I mean, think about affairs.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it comes down to, is a very short-term whatever. And or put that into a lot of different things that we do. Yeah. And it's so destructive. And we know, I mean, whatever the situation it is that you're in, you know what the repercussions are. But yet something triggers us to do that anyway, and that's the tree.
Yeah.
It's the tree. God told Adam and Eve. God told Adam and Eve, don't eat from this tree. But a slippery little snake comes up and says, oh, he don't know what he's talking about. And so
it's hard for us to believe that God could tell somebody that and somebody ignore God. It's just, it's so hard to believe.
Well, we talked about this last night. We were having our Bible study, me and Lane and Holly, and we were in, golly bum, I'm telling on myself now, I'm getting my age.
Oh no, it gets worse. Something, I've always said, the one thing that works better on me every year is my forgetter.
Yeah, I'm going blank right now. Anyway, we were talking about how people in the Bible, take the children of Israel, for instance. They were led out of captivity by a cloud that moved during the day and a cloud that was on fire at night. Manna, food, rained down from the sky when they were hungry. The Red Sea split in 2, and they were able to walk across on dry land. And then it closed up and killed the people that were trying to kill them behind them, the Egyptians. But yet they complained, and some of them still didn't believe. How is that possible? That it's just like Adam and Eve here. How is it possible that the God of the universe said, please don't eat that tree? Or not please don't eat that tree. To say that we're programmed, for all the people out there who say that, we get into the free will, and we're not going to get into that, but for there to be people out there to say that we don't have free will,
yeah,
just look. I mean, so it really blows my mind that people back then didn't believe and didn't trust. And I say that, but then I come all the way back to today. We have miracles today that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And we acknowledge them as miracles, but yet we do the same thing. We bellyache and complain and, God, why is this happening? Well, we know the answers to the question we're asking. We know what's going to happen if we do that thing that we know we're not supposed to do, but we do it anyway. And it's a great question.
Yeah, we have Todd Shoemaker. We just shared his story, and it's a modern day miracle. It can be nothing else. There is no other explanation. And yet, we will complain when we don't feel good. Part of what you mentioned, all this whole thing with the Israelites, part of what strikes me there is just how temporary pleasure is.
Mm-hmm.
Because they had this temporary pleasure of seeing those things that happened. And even to the point where God was providing their food for them. And then eventually that thing that was such a blessing, such an incredible miracle, became I don't want to eat that again. You know, it's amazing how temporary those pleasures, what we call pleasures, are. I just think it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think about how when we don't want to run, you know, what's the number one excuse for I don't want to run
I don't
today?
have time.
I don't have time, or I'm too tired.
Mm-hmm.
I had a hard day today, and I'm too tired, and I don't want to get out there, and I don't want to go do it. And you know what happens is the evil one takes that tired feeling and just amplifies it
Mm-hmm.
and makes it that much worse. Where the truth is if you get off the couch and you'd go ahead and just make that first step, you'll realize, this isn't nearly as bad as I was thinking it was 20 minutes ago.
And how do you always feel after?
Always feel great.
Yeah.
Yep, always. Yep.
Sometimes, I've heard you say this about some of your runs. Sometimes those are your best runs.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you went and you didn't think you were going to be able to do it, and you just crush it.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Well, last Friday was one of those days.
Right.
It really was one of those days.
Yeah, you said you had dead legs before the race.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Obviously didn't during.
Yeah.
Crazy. Question number 2. Americans use 25% of the world's resources for our indulgent pleasure, wanting to have as much as possible with the least expenditure of energy. How does running for God change your attitude about that? Well, running definitely goes against that grain.
Nothing worth having comes easy. Period.
Yeah.
Any aspect of your life, nothing worth having comes easy. You know, I think about the principles we teach our kids. You know, you can my son Landon, you know, he likes to hunt and fish, and he wanted a deer rifle, and he wanted a shotgun, and he wanted a bow and arrow. Now, his mom and I could have went and bought that for him. Or we could ask him to work and go buy it for himself. We did the latter. Landon worked. He built stuff, made stuff, sold it, and he was able to buy his own deer rifle, shotgun, and bow and arrow. Do you know how well he takes care of those things? Do you think it would be the same, he would take the same care if we had just went and bought them for him?
Probably not.
No, because we understand the satisfaction that comes from putting work into things. It's the satisfaction you get after a hard track workout, and you're like, oh, that hurt so bad, and that was so hard, but it feels so good.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with anything we do in life that's hard. You know, the satisfaction of, you know, I have a building background, and that's one thing I loved about the building industry is, especially when I was framing, you work hard at framing and construction. It's one of the hardest jobs there are. It is super labor intensive. But you know what I loved about it? At the end of the day, you could turn around and there were walls and a roof there this afternoon that weren't there this morning, and you could see the fruit of your labor, and that's a godly principle. That is something that's instilled in us, the yearning to do that. And when we just want to indulgent pleasures with the least amount of expenditure, it's not satisfying. It's not as satisfying as if you do something to get it.
Well, and the crazy part about it is that we're constantly being bombarded with messages about how things should be easy. You know, take a pill and lose weight. I've seen advertisements that say, you run your best on 15 miles a week. Just crazy stuff that I know is not true. Right. I've taken some of that stuff and some of those marketing ads, and I've looked at them and to dig into them to see, well, what are they trying to say? And it's really all it is. Marketing. It's just somebody telling you that something is something that it's not.
Right.
And that's the truth about not working for something, is you're not getting anything when you don't work for it. You know, getting in shape, staying in shape requires work. Being spiritually fit requires work. Mm-hmm. God doesn't want us to be sitting on the sidelines just absorbing. He wants us to be working toward
And
being better Christians.
That's why I have a little bit. I mean, I understand the heart behind these companies, and I'm not saying anything to take away from their motive behind this, what I'm about to say, but it's why I have a little bit of a problem with these apps that you can put on your phone that sends you a daily verse. That's good. I mean, that is a noble thing, but if I think people put that app on their phone and they say, well, I'm getting my Bible time in today. That's my God time. And if that's what you're living on, you're malnourished.
That's absolutely
It's
right.
plain and simple. If you're not cracking open the book and getting in God's Word and talking to Him and arguing with Him and pleading with Him and really getting to know Him, please hear my heart. And that is a good thing what those app companies are doing, but that should only be a supplement.
That's exactly.
That should not be your main course.
That should be in addition to.
Right.
The icing on the cake.
Exactly. But that's the way many times so much of this stuff is marketed to us is this can be your time with God, and it's just not sufficient.
And because we're so busy these days,
right.
We look back on the day and we go, okay, I didn't spend time, but there was that app and that thing that I did for that 5 minutes,
Yeah, I'm not saying don't get the app, but I'm saying if you see that app and you think, oh, I can get that because I can fit that in, you need to stop and think right there.
Yeah.
That we talked about the story or the quote or something you had a few weeks ago that says, I have so much to do today that I need to spend more time in prayer today. And that's so true.
Yeah.
I don't know how we got off on that, but
I don't either, but it's a good subject.
Yeah.
So.
That needs to be a supplement.
A supplement.
There is power in people's stories.
It's a challenging time. What do you do when everything you believe about God is being tested and God doesn't look like the good father that He says He does?
You've got layers and layers and layers of hate in your heart. It takes God to clean it out.
Your story can help encourage others around the country, just like these stories have. You can walk through a simple process of sharing your story with the Big Share app. Download the Big Share app in your app store to start sharing hope with others.
Okay, we're back, and it is time for Dean's Thoughts. That is a time when I share something that I've written about the intersection between running and faith. So how do you react when things don't go your way? More specifically, how do you react when things are just not right? Well, this story is called Reaction. We have all heard the Charles Swindoll quote, I am convinced that 10% of what happens to me let me start over. We've all heard the Charles Swindoll quote, I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. It's a great quote. How we react to things is critically important, especially for a Christian. One bad reaction to someone who doesn't know us can shape their opinion about us in a negative way. I've seen several occasions lately where someone reacted negatively to a situation only to come back and apologize. Tensions have been high all across our country, and it's easy to lose your cool when you would normally be calm. Well, how about your running? How do you respond to your environment when you're running? Do you focus on how hot or cold it is outside? Do you fret over it? If your hamstring hurts, what's the first thing that goes through your mind? Is it, oh no, or is it, well, let's see what happens in another mile? Are you upset if you have to take a couple of days off, or do you look at it as an opportunity for better rest? There are 1,000 different scenarios that play out every day in the minds of runners all across the globe. So let me ask this. Does it matter? Well, I think it matters. How you react to whatever is in front of you dictates your next step. If I don't look at an ache or a pain objectively, I can lead myself into an injury, or I can force myself to take time off that isn't needed. In addition, negative reactions almost always lead to worse feelings. The hotter you believe it is outside, the worse you're going to feel. It works the same way with cold weather. I've had both these situations. One where I get home and check the temperature and it's colder than I thought it was, and one where it's much warmer than I thought. The determining factor was my state of mind that day. Digging a little deeper, I would say that most of the time you don't need to react at all. It is what it is, and there's nothing you can do to change many factors like the weather. Why react either positively or negatively to heat? You can't make it cooler. You can make a decision to run in shadier location, but once you're on your way, nothing you can do about it. There is no reaction that will change facts. Of course, it goes without saying that appeals to a host of issues. So what about God? How does God react to us when we disappoint Him? He doesn't. Let me say that again. He doesn't react to us. Why do I say that? God is in control of everything. He just is. No reaction necessary. We can't surprise Him. Isaiah 55:8-9 says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, says the Lord. For as the heavens are as high as the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." Make no mistake, God is in control. He doesn't react to things because He doesn't need to. It's not a surprise to Him. And if we're focused on being more like Jesus, as the Bible tells us we should, we don't need to react to the things around us in ways we wouldn't be proud of later. We don't need to look at the negative side of anything because we know that there's a positive side to everything. How are you reacting to the world around you? Do you see the glass half full or half empty? I want to get to a point spiritually where the only thing that matters to me is that God is the one holding the glass. Then nothing else matters.
It's a great story, Dean, as usual.
We've all been in those situations, right? That turn us into something we don't want to be. It happened to me recently.
Are we going to have to air our laundry here?
Yeah, well, maybe not completely, but I had a dog that came out of nowhere, surprised me, and it scared me. And I was literally thinking I was afraid the dog was going to bite me because he looked a little aggressive, and there was a family standing out there, and I kind of shouted at the guy that was there, "Will you get your dog?" And I was really kind of a jerk about it, and I just remember I ran up the road, and I turned around, and I ran back, and I said, "Let me just tell you something. I apologize. I should not have reacted that way. There were kids there, and I felt really bad about saying what I had said." But we get in these situations and we react in ways that we don't want to react.
But this is where I look at Isaiah 55, and I think I kind of see what he's talking about there. He said, "My ways, my thoughts are not your thoughts. My ways are not your ways." Well, you can look at that situation and you can kind of see what God's talking about there, because in your mind, and initially when people hear that story, they think, "Wow, you were a jerk." But we don't know what God was doing there, because if you would have just said, "Hey, you care to get your dog?" and they got their dog and you were nice about it, that might not have made an impact on those people. But you made a profound impact on those people when you were a jerk, but you came back. And that's what we don't do enough of in this world. Are we going to mess up? Yes. But people who don't know Christ, that is when they see Christ. They see Christ in us, because that is different. Most people would not have turned around and came back. But God got a hold of you. He was probably thumping you in the head. If I know you, He was thumping you right there. Yeah. And so that was God working. We don't understand that, but I can kind of see it now that, we don't know what that family was going through, but they saw Jesus come up in their yard through Dean. It might have been Jesus dragging Dean back up there, but nevertheless, you made it right. And I think that's where we have to understand that we're going to mess up. But what the devil wants us to do is to mess up and then just try to sweep it under the rug or forget about it or whatever. And it's when we make it right that can often have as big or bigger impact than if we hadn't done it at all. So it's there again. It's like you started off this whole segment. It's how we react.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I remember a race one time where we went the wrong way, and here's the question: at that point, what do you do? Right at that point in time, I wasn't going to have a good time. I wasn't going to do what I came there to do. Do you just give up? Do you just run back to the starting line and go, okay, whatever, or do you keep working hard?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the way that you react to a situation like that says a lot about us and about how we feel about life in general. In that case, that whole group that went the wrong way, we came back and there were a bunch of people ahead of us, and we had to go try to run them all down.
Mm-hmm.
And we pretty much to a person, we all kind of went back at it and just kept fighting hard as we could.
I guess what you just said made me think about, I've always had, and I've been real open about this, I've always had a little bit of a problem with professional athletes, runners, triathletes, who the race isn't going like they want and they mail it in. They pull out of the race, and on one hand I get it. I understand why they're paid athletes who, they've got another race coming up, but I've always had a little bit of a problem with it because of what you're talking about. It's their reaction to what's going on. Probably one of the biggest races that made an impact on me with regards to that kind of situation was the Ironman World Finals a few years ago. And Jan Frodeno, who was picked to be one of the top three, if not win it, he got in some trouble on the run. I don't know if he had a side stitch or what have, but basically his race was over. Most athletes would have pulled out.
Yeah.
Jan Frodeno didn't. He started hamming it up and just, started running with some of the age groupers and just going and high-fiving people, and he came through, and the crowd was going crazy for him, even though he come in probably the lowest place he'd ever finished in an Ironman. But he took something that most of us would have just been ill as a hornet, bitter, sour, mailed it in, quit the race, and he made something good out of it.
He took that situation and made it not about him.
He made it about the competitors around him. Because I always look at it, what does Jan Frodeno, who could do that race in just over 8 hours, what does it say to that person who's back there just barely trying to get in under 17 hours, which is the cutoff?
Yeah.
That's the people I think about when I see the professionals pull out. And again, if there's a professional out there listening to this, I understand, but I would also say, think about the people way back there behind you.
Yeah.
And what it says to them and how you could impact their lives by not pulling out. Don't continue to hurt yourself long term, but turn it into something else.
Think about the number of people today that say, I remember that time where Jan Frodeno came by me in a race and he stopped and gave me a high five.
Everybody that watched it on TV. I mean, all the network cameras were like focused on him.
Yeah. Because
they're like, what's this crazy guy doing? Why ain't he pulling out? But years later, this is the story I remember. I don't even know who won that race. I honestly do not remember who won that race, but I remember Jan Frodeno finishing way back in the pack.
Yeah.
But it was because of his attitude.
Wow.
To adversity.
That's a great story. I remember just this past summer, and I don't know if I mentioned this on this podcast at some point in time, but I had one of those days, and it was really hot out that day, I think, and I kind of almost blacked out, and I had to sit down, and one of my neighbors had to come and pick me up and take me home. It was really bad. It was worse than I thought it was in the moment. In the moment, I didn't think that much about it. I thought, well, I'm just having a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot worse than that. But do I change what I'm doing today because of what happened that one day? And the answer is no, obviously. But so many people will take a situation like that and they'll just hang it up. It'll be like, I don't ever want that to happen to me again. And I don't want that to happen to me again.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying if it happened next week I'll be happy. But I can't stop doing. I can't stop living
Right.
because of that. And I think we see a lot of people scared to live today.
Especially today.
Yeah, yeah.
If you've ever participated in any sport, you've probably met a great coach. Great coaches inspire us to do more than we ever thought possible. You can be the leader that helps others achieve things they never thought possible. You, yes, you have the ability and the opportunity to be that person. All you need is a heart to help people and the ability to follow a plan. The Run for God 5K Challenge will come ready to help you inspire those around you. The step-by-step guide will direct you how to plan, pray, and train people both physically and spiritually. You can help them become more fit in their health and in their walk with Christ. Share your passion. Go to runforgod.com to find out how to inspire others to accomplish big things.
Back, and have you not become a coach yet? If you're out there and you've ever thought how much fun it would be to kind of lead people through running, or even if you haven't thought that and you just think you want to be a part of something special in somebody's life, then maybe you should become a Run for God coach and you should teach a 5K challenge class yourself.
We've had over 5,000 now around the world.
Good heavens.
And they're some of the awesomest people. And they will tell you that teaching the 5K challenge did more for them than it did for their students. And it's true. I can testify to that. You can testify to that. And so, yeah, go check it out.
Absolutely. So we have a trivia question for today. So what is it? Let's go back to track and field. And let's ask this question. What site has hosted the USATF, that's the United States of America Track and Field Championships, more than any other? And what is the name of the stadium and where is it located?
I bet I know this one.
I bet you know this one too.
This one's low-hanging fruit right here.
It might be, but research that a little bit because that place has a colorful history.
Now, let's go with the rules. Number one, if you know the answer to this question, you need to email it to dean@runforgod.com. You have to be a Run Club member to win. And you have to send the email to dean@runforgod.com, not customer service, not Facebook Messenger, but also include your T-shirt size because the boxes that we've been giving away have been popular.
Yeah.
The Run Club boxes, it comes with the mug, it comes with a copy of Devotions, and it comes with a T-shirt, a Run Club T-shirt. So if you're not a member but you know the answer to the question, then go sign up to become a member and send Dean an email right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the only rules.
Fantastic. So, every week we share one reason why running is so awesome. And I am going to share this week. And I don't know if you know this, but this is a fascinating fact. We are better at endurance running than almost any other animal on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that?
I knew that.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. And it has a lot to do with the shape of our bodies and the way our bodies are made, the shape of our hips, our feet. The length of our legs makes a difference. The idea that our spinal cords have the disc between them that provides shock absorption helps. Our ability to sweat is one of the biggest reasons why we can run long distances and many animals can't. And it just makes it possible for us to run mile after mile after mile.
Well, you know, if you've read the book The Road to Sparta by Dean Karnassus, he talks about that in ancient Greece, this is where ultra running started, was because if a commander or a captain of an army needed to get a message to someone 100 miles away, an endurance runner, I forget what they called them then, but they had a name for those, the endurance runners, they could get that message 100 miles faster than a horse. And it's not saying that we can run faster than a horse, but a horse does not have hardly any endurance. They're fast. Or they can walk for very long distances, but trying to get a long distance in a quick amount of time was done by humans.
Yeah. If you want to know more, too, about the science behind it, there's a book out there called Born to Run, one of the most popular running books ever written, and it talks a lot about...
Was that McDougall?
McDougall,
Yeah.
Christopher McDougall, yeah, and it's a great kind of look at that history of why we're such good
And
runners.
also The Road to Sparta.
And the
you
Road
know,
to
Dean
Sparta.
goes through that in detail about
Yeah.
the Spartans who did that.
Yeah, two great books. Our motivational thought of the week. And this one is is attributed to a quote that many quotes are attributed to, and the guy's name is anonymous.
Wow.
So I don't know who that
Never
guy is.
heard of him.
Brilliant guy, though. The task ahead of you is never greater than the strength within you. I like that. I think God gives us the strength to complete things and to do things that we never thought we could do. This past Friday, we talked about that race that I ran. Honestly, if somebody had told me I would run that race in that amount of time before the race, I would have said, there's no way. I don't have that kind of strength within me. We have strength within us we don't even know we have. And especially when it is God that is providing the motivation and the strength within us. So, listen, we want you to join Run Club. Again, this is a great way to connect with other people who have similar interests to yours. If you're here and listening to this podcast right now, it's probably because you like running and because you love God. It's probably those two things. And so there are many, many others just like you who feel the same way you do, and they're all part of Run Club. Or a lot of them are part of Run Club. We want more of them to be part of Run Club, and we need you too. So we have lots of different resources out there. Check out runforgodrunclub.com to see all the resources that are out there.
27 cents a day.
27 cents a day. There's training plans. There are videos, one on top of another. There's a ton of them out there. The weekly text, the Facebook group is just gold. It's worth it all by itself. So, go out there, give us 5-star reviews, make sure that people know who we are, share this podcast with other people so that they hear it. And now, may God bless every step of every run. Go out there and shine your light.
Good job, Dean.
For more information about the Run for God ministry, go to runforgod.com. If you have questions about your salvation, click on the Peace with God tab. There's nothing more important. Thanks for joining us today.